Welcome to another episode of the Heron Outlet. We took a little bit of an international break too, right, guys? He's Austin Robillard. She's Alex Winley. I am Ian Hest. We're happy to be back for kind of what feels like the start of the second half of the season. We're not really there just yet, but a little bit of a break in the schedule as the U.S. men's national team and finishing World Cup qualifying games happen over this past international break. The Nations League and CONCACAF. As well as in Europe. So plenty of action to get to. But guys, let's start as we get ready for this upcoming weekend's match against Atlanta with looking back at the last month that Inter Miami has had, which the run of form is really quite wonderful. Nearly undefeated, did drop that game in the U.S. Open Cup in penalties to Orlando. So not in the competition that they would have hoped to progress down the line and hopefully get that CONCACAF Champions League spot towards the end of the year. But a lot to be excited about, a lot of hope for this second half of the year as we're getting nearer and nearer to it. Let's go back and look past that Charlotte 1-0 game really was the turning point. Like you had mentioned pre-show, Austin, and so we'll start with you. That South Georgia Tormenta game in the Open Cup, they didn't really look very sharp to start, turned it around, and then from there, it's been a run of about 5-6 games that they've looked a lot better.
Yeah, I think it's all come down to getting results, right? And we've all spoke about it. Phil has spoken about it going into this season, and what happened last year is that they couldn't grind out any results. And it seems like, especially looking at the games that they played, not playing good against South Georgia Tormenta, but getting the 3-1 win, 2 ties against DC United and Philadelphia back to back, grinding out both of those ties, the 0-0 against Philly especially. And then you look at the win against Portland and New York Red Bulls, where they kept a clean sheet against the Red Bulls, by the way. It seems like this team is finally not – it seemed there was a lot of time where not necessarily they were giving up last year, but when the spirits were down, everything was down. The style of play was down. The physicality levels were down. And it seems like now – there's something instilled in this team that we haven't seen before, and we can go through the results and everything like that and look at everything that's happened. But what we're seeing now is more of a unit. We're seeing a lot of consistency. And I think after this international break with some of the moves that we'll talk about that have happened, I think Phil has got an idea going into this latter half of the season that says, this is what I want to employ on the pitch, and this is what I want to do in order to grind these results. And I think he's got a personnel that's able to do so.
Yeah, and adding on to that, I think Inter Miami have just found a way to be consistent in their personnel and their formations. It's not, looking back to the last 2 years, it's not something they've had, consistently. It was always, who's going to start at right back, who's going to get the goals, who's going to, be the center back pairing. But now, after the offseason overhaul that they did, they finally have a group of players that you can we're having debates about who should start and who should be on the bench. And you look at, we'll touch on Mo Adams and his move away. Sometimes in this system, you probably, as a player, you probably won't get minutes now because there's so much competition in several places. So Neville and his coaching staff have found a real good way to get results now, even with the sanctions, and really only one DP at the moment. And it's been impressive from Inter Miami. Everyone thought they would be or win spoon level. I mean, I think we all thought, maybe they could make the playoffs, but we weren't expecting anything too big. But now, they're starting to gain momentum, and and heading into that international break, they were in the 7th spot for the playoffs. So, and they're still a spot behind, 2 teams with 1 point to spare between them. So it's been really impressive from the Herons, and I think they'll just continue to get better, hopefully, and continue that run of form.
Yeah, Alex, you had mentioned a style of play and really moving to that 4-2-3-1 consistently, I think, speaks a lot to that. And not just that, but in terms of, we had talked a lot in the past about possession numbers, how it didn't really matter if Inter Miami held the ball or not. Well, in this 4-game run, you just go down the list here. Against DC United, they had 56% possession. Against Philadelphia, 55%. Red Bulls game, 47%, the only time that they were under 50%, finishing with the Timbers at 52% possession. So they held a lot more of the ball, and they actually did something with it. Sometimes Inter Miami has been prone to having the ball without a purpose. But you look at the XG numbers against the Red Bulls, it was 2.3. Against Portland, it was 1.4. So they were getting opportunities, even though they're in that base 4-2-3-1 with Mota and Gregory sitting as true holding midfielders. They've really relied on that front four, Alex, to be that run up and be that attacking third to allow more comfortably in the back for those six to sit in front of Calendar, right?
Yeah, and I think Bryce Duke has been a big part of why Miami's been able to play this way. You know, he's in the top 25 of shot creating actions in the entire league, and if you compare stats to some of the top midfielders, attacking midfielders in MLS, he's surprisingly right up there. And it's no shock that once this roster gets younger and gets a an attacking midfielder who's positive and wants to get forward, you see results like this. So that midfield has a really nice balance between Gregory being more of a defensive midfielder, sort of a destroyer, and then Yamata being the box to box guy who can put in a pass, but that's not his main job. And they mainly defer to Bryce Duke to make those runs in behind for them, create for them, and maybe man mark the opposition's attacking number 10 as well. So it's really interesting to see. In previous years, Miami just hasn't had that. Of course, there's been Pizarro and Lewis Morgan trying to do those roles, but it seems like under Neville this season they finally found a midfield three that fits and it works really well, and they complement the attacking front three of Campana, Lassiter, Taylor, Robbie, what have you. So really interesting tactics from Neville and his coaching staff, but it's just been simple. They've simplified things, and some teams like to overcomplicate and whatnot, but Miami has just went back to basics, typical 4-3-3. Uh, you know, defend well and then counter. So it appears to be working for them.
Austin, Alex mentioned Bryce Duke, and he's really the catalyst with those three up top that she was talking about that really have emerged as this diamond attack that they have with Duke at the bottom of the diamond. Leo Campana, who we have to that's really where we have to start. 7 goals already this season, and really has emerged. Got some time with Ecuador to be in their camp in the international break. And has really emerged as a star for this team and the attacking options that they've been missing. Now also combined with the outsides, with Lassiter, with Indy Vassilev, you can throw in a Robert Taylor every now and then, who also got to go over and train with Finland over the break. So a lot of great options there, but that diamond up top really needs to be the driving force for Inter Miami to bang in these goals in the second half of the season.
Yeah, no, and it 100% is. And I think what Alex said about simplifying things has worked to perfection. And I think that's why the front four has worked so well. And I actually think, too, when we discussed the Mo Adams move, I think Bryce Duke's play is one of the main catalysts for his move away, because if you look at what Phil Neville was trying to do in the beginning of the year with the 5 at the back and then a standard 4-3-3 and now move to a 4-2-3-1 where it's really simple and he wants to use a number 10, and you look at every other holding midfielder that's on this roster, Mo Adams probably wasn't going to get significant minutes. And you look at the play of a number 10 like Bryce Duke, or even like when Robert Taylor can fit into that role, he's got a different idea for what this midfield has to be. And that's kind of where I'll leave that with Mo Adams. But going into the front four, it's a lot to do with Lassiter's speed on the wings, his switch over to the left side. I think that's another one too that's going under the radar. I know we talked about it a lot when the games were going on, but his switch over to the left side has been phenomenal for me. I think that he's not afraid to get a shot off on his right foot, and he's got the power to do so. He scored, I think, 2 goals now with his right foot. His crosses with his left foot are significantly better than when he's on his right foot, playing on the right wing. He always tries to cut inside when he's on that right wing onto his left to play across, but if he's on the left, he can play a simple cross on his left foot because it's more natural that way. He doesn't have to take the time to set up a cross. He can just whip one in. So there have been things that Phil Neville has found out with these guys. The movement from Campana has been awesome. Being able to use Taylor or Vassilev, who have very different styles in terms of their wing play, whether it's being inverted or going down to the byline, has been really good too. It's putting opposition defenders on their toes. And something that I had said time and time again is that Miami has always had to plan for other teams. They had always had to change their tactics and their formations and what they were going to do. And it seems like now with a consistent front four, with a simple style of play and all these different roles that they can all have, it seems like teams are now having to plan for what Miami is going to bring with their attack. And I think that has been a key difference in what's been sparking this run as of late.
And
Yeah, and
it's
I think,
yeah. Go ahead, Alex.
hmm? Yeah,
Go
and I
ahead.
think it's Yeah, I think Miami have a really good base right now. Going into the next season, they're going to, this is going to help them because they'll presumably have three open DP spots, and already we're seeing a really solid foundation laid down by Neville and Henderson, and then on top of that, you add on three DPs that can actually help, change the game for Miami. I think what they're doing now is a really good first step and foundation to 2023 and then the next years after that. So I just wanted to add that in there because I think what we're seeing now is going to be super important come next this upcoming winter in regards to the transfer market as well.
Well, and I think that that's a good point, and we've talked a lot about it in the past. I don't know if I want to spend too much time on it right now. I think that that's a conversation more maybe for the fall. But this is still a transitional roster. This is sort of a feel out as they go. Even in these first 14 matches that they've had, a lot of change. One of those changes more recently, let's get to this, has been in between the post and the net with Drake Callender really playing very well recently. And so, guys, let's discuss Drake. And as Drake drops a new album today, as we record on Friday,
Yeah,
our own Drake here, Drake Callender, really, first off, has he solidified? Has he taken the number one spot? Are we ready to go there? Um,
Yeah.
we
yeah,
are. Okay, I'll say
Yeah, 100%.
because
Yeah,
I'm
no,
not. I'm not
100%.
just yet. But I'll let you have the floor
Uh,
first.
so I think there's multiple reasons for this. One, especially with goalkeepers who play the hot hand, and this guy, I mean, I don't know if he's had really any there's been nothing that this guy has done wrong. They've switched how they want to play out of the back because of him, and that's completely been okay. They don't need to rely on Marsman's feet as much. They found a way to use Calendar's distribution in a very different way because they have two very different styles. I think his goal saving ability has been through the roof and probably some of best in MLS that we've seen this year. I can probably look at the numbers on that, and I think a couple weeks ago I had looked at the numbers between Calendar and Marsman. Calendar has proven to be not only a better shot stopper, but he's also a better cross stopper as well. He's more commanding in the box. I think that's something that we've all noticed. Phil Neville and Ian, you too, you love to talk about how Drake Calendar catches the ball rather than parries it away from time to time. He's got great handling ability in that sense too. You don't take this guy out of the net. There is absolutely no way to take this guy out of that. Not only that, but Alex, you just brought up the DP discussion, and I was thinking, okay, yes, there are three DP slots available, but when you add the 600 and whatever $1,000 in salary budget that you're going to add, and you still have to think about the sanctions, you look at a guy like Marsman who's up to what, like $350,000 a year, and you say, look, if I can trust this young goalkeeper and give a little bit of a pay boost and keep him on the roster for a long time and give him a decent extension, have a Clement Diop, a veteran backup who's going to be on a little bit of money, I think Marsman has a possibility, in my opinion. In my opinion, this is not facts, this is not reporting. In my opinion, you look at Nick Marsman as an asset instead of a starter, and you say, you know what, we might need to move him to free up some salary room. And for me, Calendar in these last performances has completely started that conversation to be the starter, and also Nick Marsman's possible move away in the offseason.
So I'm going to talk kind of out of both sides of my mouth in a rebuttal here, because I think that really I agree with everything that you said, and I will give you the stats. Statistically, he has been the best shot stopper in the league, and the stat that I always love to go with is it's called, I'm going to give a lot of letters here, so bear with me. It's called PSXG minus GA/90. It's post shots, expected goals minus the goals you've allowed per 90 minutes that you play. So basically, when the other team shoots on the goalkeeper, how often should they score minus how much did they score? So really showing his shot stopping ability. Statistically, Drake Callender is the best goalkeeper this season per 90 minutes in MLS at shot stopping. Like you had said, he catches the ball instead of parrying, which I absolutely love. Phil's talked about it in the past. That's wonderful. I'm not saying that he's not the number one guy. I'm just saying that I would like to see a larger sample size. And I would like to see it over a prolonged period of time before I'm willing to say, because like I feel a little more comfortable knowing whether I love it or I'm just okay with it or it's good, not great, whatever you want to call that with Marsman. I know what I've got there, and I'm comfortable with it. With Drake, there is a bit of like Linsanity that gets in my head that I get a little worried about, to make the basketball reference, that you're just running the hot hand. Can it be sustainable? Because it's been really good. And I think that coming off an extended break like they've had right now, you absolutely can see if this is for real within a game or two or three.
100%.
And
Hmm.
really see if this is something that prolonged can be the case. And then I'm willing to have that conversation. But for now, I'm just tepid, I guess I would say.
I
Yeah.
think that's smart, and I think that's a very reasonable way to look at it. You give Drake another, what, 5 games maybe, especially after this break, and you see how it goes. I think when I started comparing those numbers, those crazy PS XG that one, when you look at Marsman and Calendars, I waited to do that until they both had 5 games played in the league this season, and there was a significant difference. And like you said, Drake's had the best in the league, not only on his team. So yeah, I mean, I agree. He's still a young keeper in terms of his experience. In preseason, we saw a lot of mistakes, to say the least, from him, and the way he handled himself in terms of playing the ball out of the back, or just simple mistakes, especially in that Montreal game in preseason. And so there's a lot to take away from that. But at the same time, he's not really shown any signs of letting up at all. And granted, we've had 3 weeks off. The team has had 3 weeks off. When you throw him back into the mix after not having game time and repetition, this is the perfect time, like you just said, Ian, to evaluate his performance and his stature as a goalkeeper. Because if you give him the next 5 games and he keeps on performing the way he is, you have to let him ride out the rest of the season if he's healthy. I think 100% that's the case. And if not, then you throw Marsman back into the mix, and that's when you start making the decision in the offseason. Okay, which one do I choose? Do I go with the guy who we have, I guess we'll call Nick Marsman, all reliable? We know what we're going to get for, granted, this amount of money. Or do we go with a younger keeper who has less experience? We put some trust in him and try and keep him around and use the money from Nick Marsman in another way. So there's a lot to take away. It's not set in stone that he's going to be the starter for the next 5 years, but at least for the next 5 games, I think you'll know what you're going to get by the end of the year.
Yeah, I kind of want to compare this situation to what happened in Minnesota United with Dane St. Clair and Tyler Miller. Miller was the established, guy, veteran, that old reliable, like you said, that they leaned on to, be that starter. And then Dane St. Clair, the Canadian international, he came in and cemented himself as that number one. And you see him; he's probably going to go to the World Cup with Canada now. And he's a younger keeper. I think he was born in '97. So yeah, it's a similar
I'm old.
situation, and of course, I think United have they've stuck with St. Clair, and I think just looking at Drake's numbers, it's clear. It's clear he's got a better clean sheet percentage with 33%. He's got a better save percentage with 80%. And then Ian mentioned the PSXG minus GA number. It's in the 99th percentile, plus a 0.63 in a per 90 in the league. And literally every statistical goalkeeping category, he edges Marsden there, maybe except for penalty kicks, which there's not enough statistics for that for the statistics to actually show. But yeah, and I think Austin mentioned this one thing about crosses. Miami, even though they have taller center backs nowadays, crosses it hasn't been their strong suit. Last season, how many goals that they conceded off of set pieces and crosses into the box. But now with Drake Callender, he's got 6.7% of crosses stopped into that penalty area, which is a 51st percentile, which is okay. But you compare it to Marsman, who's 4.7%, which is a 26th percentile, which is you know lower, significantly lower. So I think Drake is younger. He's on less money, but of course that will only rise as he continues to do better. And with the sanctions, Miami may need to make some tough decisions regarding some of these players like Marsman, and do they want to keep them on, or do they want to move on and stick with the youth?
And that 0.63 number that you threw out, Alex, I think is important because if you really look at like what that means, if we extrapolate that onto the field, what that basically is telling you is that for every 3 games that Drake Callender is in goal for Inter Miami, that's 2 goals that the other team should have scored that aren't going in the back of the net simply because Drake Callender's playing good goalkeeping. And so that's like that can make the difference between 1 point and no points, 1 point and 3 points. And that can make the difference in a season. I mean, 2 goals in 3 games is not nothing. I mean, that's quite a bit. Um, Especially in a league like you had said earlier, Alex, too, where Inter Miami right now just 1 point outside of the playoff berth in the ninth seed. You just need to get into the top 7 with a game in hand on Charlotte. So goalkeeping could come down to it as well. But another problem that Inter Miami has had historically, let's be honest, has been in the back line in defense. And they're starting to figure it out a little more. Damian Lowe got a ton of great action with Jamaica over this international break, has really emerged as a bright spot, I think, in the back line. Next to him these past couple of games, Ryan Saylor, who was the first round draft pick this past year, has really emerged as perhaps a nice partnership growing there with him and Damian Lowe. What have you guys initially seen from Saylor? He provides a different look than some of the other backs that we've seen come through. If you go back to your LGPs, et cetera, that we've seen Inter Miami have in the past. This is a lot more of a traditional tall back that's going to block shots. They're going to be able to man mark in the box. They're going to get forward on corners, on set pieces, things like that. So a little bit of a different look as we talk about the shape changing.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot to say about Sailor right now in the early parts of his career. I think in the Charlotte game when he was just thrown in there and had to play because of the injury to Mabika, I believe. It was honestly a really good performance. I know they lost 1-0, but it seemed like the back line was playing really, really, really well that match, and Sailor was a huge, huge part in that. However, as the time progressed, there was more to notice with a larger sample size of Sailor's game. And granted, I think that for a guy with younger experience, and I guess I'm going on the opposite end of what you were saying, Ian. Um, he's shown a lot of promising ability. He's shown a lot of courage to make blocks. I guess he's had some issues though, in my opinion, in terms of his comfortability, his positioning, and his play out of the back. I think he gets himself sometimes in situations that I guess a young center back would, or and he's not even necessarily that young. It just has to do with the fact that he's a little bit inexperienced in a league of this stature. So there's promise in Ryan Saylor. I'll say that at the very least. I think that there is a lot of promise in him, but I want to see a little bit more. Granted, do I think he's costed Miami any points? Not necessarily. Not anything really has been fully his fault. There was a couple times where things could have totally been his fault if the ball went into the back of the net, but as we were talking about earlier, Drake Callender was there. So there's time and time again where I've seen things from him that I absolutely love, and I think that's shown signs of really good potential. But at the same time, I still take this for what it is at face value and say, look, this guy has a lot of growing to do. And at the moment, I'm still going to want to ride with, barring any injuries, a Mabika and Low partnership at the back.
Yeah, I agree. I like Ryan Taylor and his player profile. He's a tall center back, but if you watch him, he does like to break lines with his passing when he can, when he's not under pressure. And he's really good at, he's tall, so he's really good at getting up in the air and clearing and blocking things. And I will say that, like Austin said, there are a couple moments where positionally, but he's a rookie. Positionally, he does get pulled out sometimes, and he doesn't necessarily have the recovery speed to get back. So the defense tends to scramble, but we've only seen that a couple of times because he's only started a couple of times. And naturally, once he starts to get more reps with Low or Mabika or whomever, he'll fix that. But I'd agree. I think I'd put Mabika back into the lineup. It's just his height, and he does have a bit more pace, I think, and legs to just you know you know just kind of bulldoze an attacking player if they get too close to the goal or something. And Mabika, of course, has more experience in MLS play. And I think I don't know, when was the last I think the Seattle game stands out to me because I remember Miami, they were up a goal and they were just defending for their lives, and having Mabika in there just heading balls away, and just his presence is just intimidating, height wise for attacking players. So just having him in there uh, is just an advantage for Inter Miami. But yeah, I like Ryan Taylor, but I think Neville will just stick with the hot hand. Mavika's coming off of an injury, and Ryan Taylor has been getting minutes, so I think Neville will stick with Taylor until maybe he needs a rest, and then just rotate really.
I think right now it's a good third, fourth option at center back, 100%. I think it's almost one of the perfect ones, I would say. It just has to do with, like you were saying, Alex, Lowe and Mabika being steady. We saw what they did for a while. We were calling them the Twin Towers at the back. Like, I think that they have this. They have more experience, and I do remember that Seattle game time and time again. Seattle was playing in crosses on the wings when they brought in their starters, the Roldons and the Morrises, and whoever crossing in balls to try and get heads on it. But over and over and over again, Mabika and Lowe were there. And yes, Ryan Taylor can provide that, but it showed you the experience under pressure that these guys can withstand. And I think that that's something that you use. And you look at Ryan Taylor as not necessarily a project, because I think that he can get starting minutes. He has gotten starting minutes and put in some really, really decent performances next to Damian Lowe. Um, but it might be a little bit different next to another center back that isn't Damian Lowe.
Mm.
I do think though. I mean, talking more immediately with this weekend against Atlanta, Lowe did play a lot of minutes for Jamaica. Yedlin also with the U.S. Men's national team. So they're just coming back from international duty. Maybe a Mabika and Sailor that you might see this weekend just to give some rest coming back. I just think it's something to keep in mind or keep an eye out for. One guy that we won't be seeing for the rest of the year is Robbie Robinson. Again, injured. It feels like a merry-go-round at this point. It's very, very frustrating. And if we're this frustrated, I can't imagine how Robbie feels. A very, very disappointing start to what looks and still looks like it could be a very promising career. Still young, still has a lot of talent. Injured that hamstring, the right hamstring, I believe it was, against the Timbers. Underwent surgery earlier this week, expected to miss 4 to 5 months, which pretty much takes him out for the rest of the year. Since being drafted first overall, guys, in 2020, the first ever super draft pick for Inter Miami, Robbie Robinson has only he's only started in 26 of Inter Miami's 71 MLS games in that time frame. He's only played about a third of his available minutes since being drafted to the team. That number, both numbers, obviously going to go down with missing the remaining 20 games of this season. What does the future hold for Robbie? Not only in terms of with Inter Miami, perhaps do they consider moving on, that this is now year 3 and he can't stay healthy? Is it too early to are we kicking someone when they're down by saying that? Or is it what do we see for his career? There's so many questions there on what was such a talented goal scorer that just simply can't stay on the field for whatever reason.
I think that they will give him more than enough time to recover. First of all, player health is the utmost importance. So I think any idea of moving him on, that will wait until he is fully fit. However, I do agree Robbie has loads of talent and potential, but it's just not been able to. He's not been able to make it click consistently. When he's on form, he can be a really dangerous winger, number 9, according to some other folks. But as far as his injuries go, it's unfortunate. 'Cause you see it in other sports. You got some really explosive players, but um, they can't stay healthy, and it's really unfortunate. But I think Robbie, he's on I think he's still on his rookie contract, so he's not earning a lot. So that is advantageous for Inter Miami, who's the sanctions and their cap spend, they can't spend too much. So having Robbie on that rookie contract really helps Inter Miami. But um you know yeah, we're just gonna have to wait until the off season, really. Like I said earlier, I think it could be probably the most important offseason in Inter Miami history, because they're going into a new era of 3 DPs. So they've got to get these 3 correct in order if they want to go and challenge for MLS Cup or win the US Open Cup. But as far as Robbie goes, I think he's still on that contract and he's cap friendly right now. But I don't know. Neville, he sees a lot in him, and we hear in the press conferences people will ask about Robbie, but Neville will give really short, curt answers in regards to Robbie, and then maybe explain that he knows he'll explain that Robbie knows what Neville thinks of him and how to get the most out of him, and it's really short and to the point answers. So I think Neville just wants Robbie to play, but the injuries and I'll even add on that incident in the U.S. Open Cup where he basically body slammed the other guy out of nowhere. I don't know if the player said anything, but said something or something, but yeah, it's difficult. But cap wise, Robbie's contract is super friendly, but player wise, they may, you can trade him to a Charlotte FC. He's from the Carolina area. Maybe move back home will do him some good just to calm down and to get that rhythm back. But yeah, it's unfortunate because he has a lot of potential, but right now it's not clicking, and the injuries they do start to pile up.
Yeah, I'm not sure how long that rookie contract is meant to last if we're in year 3. I don't know if there is one more year, but
Can I jump
actually I
in on
believe
that?
he
Because
was
I actually
Yeah.
don't
yeah.
know with the 2020 COVID year. I don't know how those contracts were impacted by it, which is something that we need to look into because
Yeah.
it's interesting if those are prorated over the entirety of the deal.
But he's also on a generation Adidas contract, so there's no
Yeah.
implications at all on him from him
For the cap,
onto
but not for his deal. For towards the
right.
cap, it's not, but
It doesn't
towards his
matter.
actual
Right, right.
contract.
In terms of the length of him actually being a Miami player. Yes. Yeah, that's interesting. I never thought about that. Um, but yeah, so I mean, if you have another year or however, I'm not really sure what it is, but if there is a possibility, in my opinion, and I'm just going to play businessman here, and as much as I hate doing this, because I do wish Robbie all the best. I've supported him since he's gotten here. I think that he's a really talented player, and I've thought that him staying on the field healthy should have I wish it could have happened all of the time, and I think that he had a lot to offer, and there was a lot of potential as you were talking about. And it's unfortunate it hasn't been that way, and I definitely feel his frustration, and I hope he can come back 110%. But to play businessman here and to think that maybe there is another year on his deal going into the offseason, and again, me going back to the sanctions and Miami still probably having to clear things up going into 2023, a trade for allocation money within the league is a huge possibility, in my opinion, especially if they're trying to retain Indiana Vassilev. You have Emerson, you have Robert Taylor, you have Ariel Lassiter. If you're looking to keep all of these guys, you have this wing depth that you look at Robbie Robinson. The number 9 experiment with him did not work. It didn't work under Alonso. He wasn't scoring many goals. They put him out on the wing. He offered something different. He was getting on to defenders, all of these different things. But with the depth that we have now in a front four that time and time again has proven to be good, and it seems like you can plug and play with a lot of these guys if they are thinking about keeping the 4 players that are with him or ahead of him on the roster right now. Lassiter, Emerson, who Phil Neville loves and says is a long-term project, Vasilev, if they can keep him from Aston Villa, and Robert Taylor. I don't know if Robbie Robinson is the perfect person to keep if he's not going to play.
Yeah, he's a
And
bit
if
of
you
a
can,
surplus almost. Like
right, it
yeah.
is almost surplus. You look at it as an asset, almost like you would look at Marsman as an asset, because if you can trade them within the league and get allocation money back, then you have more freedom to get guys who may actually play for you and have significant roles in different areas of the pitch. And I think that that should be the priority. And as terrible as it sounds to be going at a guy who just got injured and how unfortunate it is, and I do feel bad for him, and player health is always the number one thing. I think that now they're being forced into a situation where they have to make strong decisions, and that's kind of just how I'm seeing it right now.
Yeah, it's so hard for me because you watch him and the talent and listen, we get to see and sometimes you call them like training ground superstars, right? Like we get to see him in practice
Yeah.
and sometimes you scratch your head and you just think where's the difference? What's happening between this pure talent that I'm seeing and why is it not translating? Why can he not stay healthy? Why can he not get these minutes? I am a huge believer in Robbie Robinson. I still think that it was the right decision to take him number one overall, simply because I think that he would. I think that he was the pick. And I know that DK has gone on to other things, but I just you watch their tape and both of them side by side. I still think that Robbie was the pick then, and it's just been so unfortunate how it's played out. I would like to give one more shot. I would like to see how this that a hamstring injury worries me, especially at his young age, because those things tend to be related to playing time. They tend to be related to
Yeah,
fitness and
especially
coming
a,
back. And
a
right,
tendon,
yeah.
a hamstring tendon too.
And so it's not not a great injury, unfortunately. Like you both had said, wish him the best. I'd like to run it back one more time. But Austin, you bring up a really good point. Allocation money for a GA contract with the sanctions, like Alex had said, I mean, it does make a lot of sense. I don't. You're making me think, and
I don't love it. I don't love it. I don't
yeah,
love it at all.
it
I
sort of
don't love it.
hurts me
I
that
mean, it sucks. Yeah, I agree. I think it hurts a little bit too. And I have, wanted Robbie to be successful here for so long, for the last 3 years, and
he
I've
deserves it. I
advocated for
mean,
him to
he
be the star.
deserves it. He's put
And
in the work.
yeah,
Hmm. Yeah.
and it's just it's such an unfortunate situation because without the injuries, we're obviously not having this conversation of moving Robbie Robinson, right? It's not there, and I think that because he was on the GA contract and because it was like a almost like a freebie, you can have this talented player who can unlock potential from time to time at your service whenever you wanted. You could play him on the field; it'd be great. But it's not whenever you want anymore because he's unfortunately gone through this crazy battle with injuries. It just seems like he's almost cursed at this point. And then you have to take a different perspective on the GA contract now, and like you were saying, is to turn it into allocation money within a trade. And it sucks that that's the way it works out. And I don't mean any offense to the Robinson family or Robbie himself at all, but it's just it is. I guess it is what it is, as terrible
Yeah.
as it sounds, and I wish it could be better.
Alex, real fast, I want to touch on another player who's no longer an Inter Miami player. Mo Adams released from his contract over the break, and I believe he's heading overseas and going to play in the Middle East. If I saw that correctly, Mo was always a great guy in the locker room, a fun guy to talk to.
Yeah.
And just you guys talk about depth in the wings. I think also a product of the depth that there is in the central midfield with Bryce Duke, with Robert Taylor. Even throw a Uoa in there that can be a plug and play guy still for Inter Miami. That maybe Mo's time here in the 305 was coming to an end and now has come to an end. That does open up options, I think, for center midfield to be addressed, Alex, like you had mentioned, with the 3DP situation coming up probably this summer. They already have one of those slots open, most likely two, most likely three, if we elongate that out. So just on Mo's time, his brief time here with Inter Miami, and where if you think that center mid is a point of emphasis moving forward that they'll look into.
Yeah. Now you mentioned that, I already have a little like thread article, just kind of brewing about potential players that could be in central midfield. So look out for that. But I think with Mo, he's an extraordinarily smart player. I remember, I don't know what game it was, but I think it was after a loss where he was talking about, I think it was Austin FC or something, but he was talking about how him as a third midfielder, Neville wanted him to push into those half spaces to support the attacking front two or front three, was it? But Mo, no, he's more of a defensive midfielder to kind of sit back and just kind of rotate possession. He's not going to create too many chances for you. So, when you have Gregory in that spot, and then you have Bryce Duke emerging as a number 10, him playing as a third, get into those hot spaces type of midfielder, there was, unfortunately, his minutes were going to be reduced as a sort of a role bench player. So, yeah, it's unfortunate. Mo's super likable. He's really good in the locker room. If you follow players on social media, he was always in the mix with McVay and Bryce Duke, and Lassiter, and they were always hanging out. So he's a good guy, and I wish him the best in Saudi Arabia, I believe. But yeah, it just shows, like you said, Ian, Miami have a wealth of different options in different areas now. They didn't have that last season or the season before. So, you know, letting a guy like Mo Adams walk is, it's, fans may not see why he walked, but there's a reason. He could go to Saudi Arabia, get some more minutes, and now Inter Miami, they have his. I don't know how the cap works, but now they have his. Uh, you know, gets money off the books now, and it gives them more flexibility. Correct me if I'm wrong on that. Yeah, just gives them more flexibility going into next season, and plus it gets rid of a player that wasn't getting too many minutes. But yeah, it was a really I wasn't surprised when the move happened, but I can see why people are sort of panicking about it though.
I'll go back to the point that I was kind of making earlier. When I didn't want to touch on it too much, but I think I even did anyway. About Bryce Duke and his role, and Robert Taylor and his role in the number 10 spot, and how that kind of, in my opinion, has almost forced this thing with Mo Adams to happen, because it's turned to a 4-2-3-1 now. It was seeming to be a 4-3-3, but the amount of times we saw, the third midfielder move up in front of Jean Mota and Gregory and play either alongside or right behind Leo Campana, there was no real need for Mo Adams to be getting minutes, because he's not going to fill in that role, and you're looking to start Jean Mota and Gregory every match that they're possibly available for. So the lack of minutes for Mo Adams was probably going to be, um, you know, a negative for both sides, for Mo Adams himself as a player and for the club. And I think that letting him explore a different option to be able to terminate his contract and let him go get minutes elsewhere is a good deed by the club. It's a good deed for the player, and I do wish him the best too. It just didn't seem like he fit in this role, and I think you explained his style of play perfectly, Alex. When you're thinking of a 4-3-3, you need to have someone who can go box to box and play a little bit higher. And Jean Mota has expressed that a little bit, but at the same time, he's now liking to play with his back to the defenders and sitting in the hole at times and trying to display passes. Gregory, the aggressor, of course. And if you put Mo Adams there, you don't have a true creator in that role. It seems like Mo Adams was the player to play a little bit more defensive, rotate possession, kind of turns his back at times when he gets the ball to play simple passes and things like that. He's not progressing anything, and they need somebody in the midfield of a midfield three to progress play. And Robert Taylor and Bryce Duke have shown that perfectly. And unfortunately, it just didn't seem like there was a need for Mo Adams on this roster anymore, as unfortunate as it is, but he's going to get minutes in a place that maybe he even got a decent payday too. You never really know. So good on Mo Adams for doing what's best for his career, and good on for Miami for letting him explore that.
Hmm.
Guys, it's game week again as Inter Miami will travel on the road to Atlanta, a team that they've had pretty good success against so far in Inter Miami's brief history, with the 3 wins, including one earlier this year at Drive Pink Stadium, a 2-1 win over Atlanta United earlier this season. There will be obviously big differences from that team. That was the game that one of the games Gregory was suspended for. And so the Inter Miami came out, if you remember, in that 4-1-4-1. It looked very confusing. It didn't look like a lot of people knew what to do, what to go on. And you had mentioned Mo Adams wanted to play a little more back to goal. He and Jean Mota in that game, I thought, did their best to try and do that, but it didn't look very good. Robbie also started that game, if I remember right. But the Inter Miami lacked possession, lacked opportunity. I think they scored on both chances that they had, and really lucky to get all 3 points, because Atlanta really peppered the net. And Atlanta's got that firepower. Thiago Almada I love. Ronald Cisneros. I mean, Atlanta's always gonna bring the heat, and especially at home with that quick artificial turf that they have. They always like to run, get out wide, get out into the wings. Let's start there, because I think that is going to put a lot of pressure on the wingbacks, a lot of pressure on the 2 outside attacking wingers in probably what will be Indy and Ariel Lassiter to really go box to box in this game, because they're going to have to drop deep. And Alex, like you had said towards the start of the show, hit on the counter, create those opportunities when they arrive. And you might not get 50% possession in this, but it can't be the 33% that we saw earlier in the year, right, Alex?
Yeah, I will say that Thiago Almada and Gonzalo Pineda will be suspended for this game because Almada, I think before the break,
Right,
he pushed a
right.
ref,
Yeah, he hit
and
the
so they
ref at the end of
suspended
the
for 30.
game.
Yeah, so he won't be playing, which is one less. attacking player for Inter Miami to worry about, and Pineda won't be on the bench for some reason. I gotta double check that, but yeah, they're still dangerous. They got Marcelo Moreno, Joseph Martinez, and all these tricky little players from Argentina, South America that are just a nuisance to play against in every way possible because they're so tricky and you touch them, they fall over, and it's just so crazy. But yeah, I think with this Miami team, they're coming off a good run of form, and like you said, Gregory will be back, and I think Neville's just going to run the same starting 11. Maybe the center backs will switch, but I think it'll be same starting 11. As far as that wing spot where Robbie would normally play, I think he'll probably put Robert Taylor. I don't know which game was it, but I think it was the DC United game. I don't know. I don't remember which game, but it was. I think it was a DC game where Lassiter was on the left, Robert Taylor was on the right, and they were just stretching their wing backs so they weren't able to overlap. And with Atlanta, they've got really good attacking fullbacks and Brooks Lennon and I think Andrew Gutman, and they do like to make those overlapping runs because the Atlanta's wingers will tuck in, whether it be like Arujo or Moreno. I think they will just tuck inside, and so it's really hard to mark them. So and then the wingers will overlap, and yeah, it makes sense in my head. But yeah, I think they'll probably Inter Miami will probably try to do the same. Just get those two wingers to stretch the bylines, and then you have Bryce Duke and Mata and Gregory doing the work in the middle. And so if Atlanta want to have the ball, one quick tackle, and then you launch aerial Lassiter, especially in that surface. It plays super quick, so one really nicely weighted through ball can really wreck an Atlanta defense. And I will mention Atlanta; they're not too good on set piece. Defending set pieces, and they've conceded a lot of goals off of that. And Miami, they're not the best at scoring, but when you got Damian Lowe and Ryan Taylor and maybe Mobika playing, you whip in a good ball in there, and maybe you can cause some havoc. So it'll be an interesting game for both sides. But we'll see how Neville rotates the team. Coming off an international break, a lot of players played a lot of games, so it'll be interesting to see.
I remember going back to that Atlanta game. I hated the midfield. Like I was so. It was the first time Jean Mota had played in the pivot because there was no Gregory, and it was Mo Adams and Robert Taylor, and it seemed like Almada and Moreno were just running circles around them, and that's why the 33% possession happened. And I thought that a lot of the time they were looking so dangerous to score a goal, but for some reason it took like a scrappy corner kick for them to actually score. And time again, saves were being made, or they weren't getting clean shots on target, whatever it was. But in I would say in 7 of 10 other games, Atlanta probably win that one if they're able to convert into better chances. And so I think going into this match, granted Almada is not going to be there, you just insert, like you were saying, Arujo into the lineup and say, there you go, Marino and him,
I think he's
just
their
run,
best
just run it.
attacking option too. Yeah. So
I agree too. He didn't even start that game, and that's when he came off of the bench. I believe Caleb Wiley started instead, the 17-year-old American. There was when he comes off the bench too. That's another scary sight. He had proven to be a really deadly attacker in times in Atlanta against Miami last season. I remember watching it in front of my eyes. I mean, the guy is a really, really good player, and without Almada, he's obviously going to be starting, barring anything crazy. So there's that. Another thing for Atlanta too, I think the set piece thing that's going on with them has a lot to do with the Miles Robinson injury, which is super unfortunate for them and the U.S. men's national team. Not to bring that bias from myself into here, but it is unfortunate. And so that's another thing that Miami can look at. He was playing in that last game. He won't be in this one. And two, Damian Lowe scoring set pieces. I believe he's gotten one already this year, and then again he scored one with Jamaica over the international break. So there's a lot of things that are pointing into Miami's direction other than playing on turf. Everything besides that seems like Miami have a huge possibility to come away from Atlanta with 3 points. And if they do, then as we were saying, this kick back right into from international break, as we were saying with Drake Calendar, could be a huge start for the next like 5-6 games into getting them into prime position, the 5th or 6th spot, to solidify themselves as playoff contenders. And I think that this is a good stepping stone for them.
how much
Yeah,
of
because
this
if they
game?
win,
Well, just real quick
Atlanta's
though.
below them. They win.
What?
It'll be
What was
good.
that, Alex?
if Inter Miami win, Atlanta's below them in a couple of spots. That'll be 2 games in hand, or I don't know. They'll have the advantage over them. Come later in the year, if Atlanta managed to sneak into 8th or 7th place, Miami will get that double over them if they win. So yeah, this game has huge playoff implications as well.
Well, that was what I wanted to talk about. Like, how much of a
Yeah.
6 pointer is this? Because Atlanta comes in, like you had said, 16 points, 4, 4, and 5, because they have 1 game less than Inter Miami. Inter Miami had 18 points. They're 5, 3, and 6. And I believe the first tiebreaker is number of wins. So Inter Miami has the advantage just on number of wins right now if they were to finish tied on points. So how much of a 6 pointer is this? Would a draw be okay because it's an away game against a playoff opponent? I think so. Just immediately right off the bat, there's too much time remaining, but you don't see Atlanta for the rest of the year. This is it. So there's a home and a home. So this is really the last chance to dig into points against them, like you were saying, Alex. So you could make the argument that this is a 6 pointer, but it's the first of what is going to become many as we trickle down the rest of the calendar.
If you look at the table, and I know we mentioned it earlier, but the separation is obviously very small between, let's say, 5th and 9th place where Miami's right now, only 4 points. And if Miami win this game, they have a game in hand on almost every single team above, except for Cincinnati, going all the way up to 4th place. If they win this game, they'll have 21 points, and it puts them in sole possession of 6th place above New England Revolution.
That's huge.
I mean, that's a lot. And in terms of a 6 pointer against Atlanta, yeah, there's that. But at the same time, it's also creating more separation from the other teams at the bottom of the East. I don't see, in my opinion, Cincinnati holding on to what they're doing right now. I think they have too many losses, and they have gotten a decent amount of wins, but I think that might go down a little bit. So that's the only team that I guess doesn't have a game in hand on them that has a point above. But if Miami win this game against Atlanta, I don't think Cincinnati's really going to be testing you down the stretch if you can stay consistent. So this could be a huge, huge launching point for them to be playoff contenders.
Mm-hmm. I agree.
The only one that I'm really writing off in the East is Chicago right now. I think that Chicago is kind of done, and then but there's 14 teams in the East and 7 make it. So you do need to finish ahead of 7 teams in order to get into the playoffs. It is a very long road ahead. We haven't even reached the 17th game, which will be the official halfway mark coming up in a couple of weeks, guys. But this Atlanta game, definitely very big. 3 p.m. Sunday. It's on ESPN2, so a nationally televised broadcast. Enjoy it for now, because come next season, a lot of big changes to the television rights deals going on within MLS. Earlier this week, the announcement of a 10-year, $2.5 billion deal with Apple TV, the streaming service. No more blackouts. No more linear over-the-air local broadcasts that you've come to know and enjoy so far. Everything is going to go onto Apple TV streaming service. This deal will last through the 2026 World Cup, which we'll talk about coming up, and really is a huge increase from the 90 and change million that MLS was receiving in the last deal between Univision, Fox, and ESPN. So one, there's many aspects to it. We'll get to a little of it here. But first off, to know that everything will be moving to Apple TV, it really ends the wars of ratings that we were always seeing with MLS. What would the numbers be for ratings? Now it's going to be streaming services. Another big perk for this is if you are a season ticket holder for Inter Miami or any other club, you will automatically for free receive this Apple TV MLS subscription. So no need to sign up for it. If you're not, I believe it's somewhere between like $3 and $5 a month for the package throughout the season. So guys, just initial thoughts on Apple TV being the home of all of these MLS games now. You can watch the whip around coverage from around the country, and a very different business model than we've seen other leagues in the United States and frankly other soccer leagues around the world use in an American audience.
2 big things for me, and they both have to do with consistency in terms of this deal. One, everything in one place. It's never been the key with MLS. Everything has always been all over, whether it was a local broadcast, Univision, Fox, ESPN, ESPN Plus, whatever it was. It seemed to be all over the place. That's the one thing that now everything's going to be with Apple TV, and you don't really have to worry about it. You can find everything in one place. The second thing about consistency that I saw, the scheduling for the games with this rights deal, what I saw, and I believe I read in the deal, was that Wednesdays are going to be the days for the midweek games, and Saturdays will have almost, if not all, of the MLS games being played on Saturday. Almost like an NFL type thing where it's like Mondays, Thursdays, and Sundays only. There's no more Saturday, Sunday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, whatever they wanted to do midweek. It's all day Saturday and then all day Wednesday if there's a midweek game. And I think that could prove to be extremely important in terms of viewing. You're not really combating with anybody in terms of the summer, in terms of playing in on Saturdays. I know the NBA Finals just ended, but like the NFL season doesn't start till September, so they'll have Sundays. I guess you have to compete with college football for a couple of weeks, but that's about it. Saturdays in the summer will be the home for MLS, and I think that could prove to be huge.
Yeah, I like the deal. I like especially that they'll have, original content, a la, Amazon Prime. They have All or Nothing, and all these behind the scenes sports shows. I think Apple TV said they're going to produce some of that, which is cool. Plus a bit of a whip around show that shows you, good saves and the goals, which is really useful for someone like me who likes to watch almost every team in MLS. But other than that, I think it's a good deal, but I do have some concerns just as far as growth goes. Let's say you're a soccer fan in Miami, but not necessarily an Inter Miami fan, and you may want to watch Inter Miami. This season you'll be able to turn on your TV and watch it for free. But next season you're gonna have to subscribe to a subscription service to watch Inter Miami, which initially you probably wouldn't have been interested in. Now there's another gateway for you to watch them, and now you may not want to do that. So as far as growth goes, I do have a bit of concerns regarding that. But for the diehard MLS fan, this is perfect because you get everything a la carte in one, and you just have to pay for one subscription service. Especially Ian, I think you're going to bring this up. The Palm Beach folks, the blackouts. You'll live 5 minutes away from the stadium. You can't watch it on TV because of the local TV deals. But with this new deal, I think it's super good, and it was needed. That these Palm Beach guys, they'll be able to just turn it on, and there'll be no blackouts. So I think that's the big win for this deal. There's no blackouts, and there's going to be a lot more original content from the league. And you see with every other league, they're able to produce these really cool behind the scenes stuff. But MLS, they've fallen short. They do have some good, extra time. I like listening to those guys, but as far as like the all or nothing type of stuff, going behind the scenes of a certain team, we don't really see that. But yeah, I think it's an overall a good deal. But I do have that one concern about maybe reaching people who aren't diehard MLS fans. Are they going to buy into a subscription service just to watch their local team?
Yeah, I think it's definitely an experiment. There is a reason that other leagues haven't done this. MLB actually has done it to a certain extent with having like a weekly baseball game. I think it's on Friday nights that Major League Baseball does this. Yeah, it is good news if you live in Palm Beach County, the Treasure Coast. I mean, I live 10, 15 minutes away from the stadium in Palm Beach County, and I don't get the local games if I were to turn on my TV and try and watch it, which is a little rather frustrating. Even if you turn on ESPN Plus, it says that it's blacked out in my market. However, you can't get the local station. So that was a frustration. I know for a lot of fans in Palm Beach County, Treasure Coast area, etc. That does have a large youth soccer fan base. So that really won't be a problem. What I guess my biggest concern is the longevity of it. 10 years is a long time for something that isn't a proven deal yet. But also the counter to that is the option to return to somehow maybe like a Sunday night uh, ESPN linear over the air game of the week that is not removed possibly from this deal. That option is still on the table. I'm not predicting that it would happen. I do think that there is the possibility there. It makes a lot of sense to just have like your premier marquee game of the week over the air broadcast, whether it be with, television, like wherever it may be, whether it be with ESPN, whether it be with Fox, to see where they go with that. Guys, finally, yeah, Austin, yeah.
Another thing that I saw too, granted, the whole thing about linear coverage and local channels and whatever possibly going away or possibly still being there, something that I know that they said for sure is that if you're watching a game through Apple TV, let's say we're watching Minnesota United take on Seattle, you can choose whether or not you want to listen to a radio broadcast or a local broadcast from Minnesota or Seattle. You can choose to
Yeah,
listen to either one of those. So that's something that I think now with Miami, when you listen to Chris Whittingham and Thomas Rongen on the radio, that those guys aren't necessarily going to go away. I think they provide fantastic commentary during the games. And if I wanted to watch that instead of listening to a national broadcaster who granted probably doesn't watch every Inter Miami game, I can choose if I want to listen to Chris and to Thomas over the radio while watching the same exact stream.
I'll add one more
good
to
point.
that. Also included in that will be Inter Miami's Spanish radio broadcast as well. So you will have the option to listen in Espanol to the Inter Miami games, which for this fan base I think is very important as well.
It seems thorough. It seems thought through. It's just I think I do share the same concerns in terms of growth and also the longevity of an unproven deal.
Yeah, I think that we're in
Yeah,
agreement on that. And we're in agreement that we're very excited not only for the 2022 World Cup, but for the 2026 World Cup. It'll be here before we know it. I will be extremely old by then, so we're not going to talk about that. But, guys, 2026, hosted by Canada, Mexico, and the United States of America, and the 16 host cities announced this week, one of which will be where Inter Miami will play on Sunday in Atlanta at Mercedes-Benz Stadium. Another one right in our own backyard in the 305. The World Cup is coming to Miami Gardens. Hard Rock Stadium will
yeah,
host the World Cup. Miami getting the World Cup bid for the first time after they were passed up when the United States hosted the last World Cup. Orlando got that. This time, Miami returns the favor and they get it over Orlando. How excited are you for the World Cup to come? Austin, I think you said that you were ready to donate a kidney for a ticket. So tickets will definitely be expensive, but let's show the world a good party and a good time.
Yeah, I texted my dad, my friends, hey, we got to start saving because,
yeah,
listen, I know it's 4 years away, but there is no way I will not be at any game that's played there. So, yeah, no, it was exciting. And I was actually watching it at work and I didn't have closed captioning on. It was sitting at a bar and I was looking at it and I saw the guy like mouth Miami and I was like, oh my God, did he just say Miami? And then I saw
The
it pop up
guy
on the
is
background and
Gianni Infantino, the president of FIFA.
CGI.
FIFA. Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm
Like it's
sorry.
some
He is
random
the president.
guy.
Okay, he's not just some guy. You're right. You're right. But I watched him say Miami. I didn't hear it, and then it popped on the background. Like me and my friends jumped around for a little bit, and then everyone was looking at us like, "What is wrong with you?" And nobody had any idea what was going on. But no, I'm super excited for it. Becoming a football fan these last I'll say 10 years has been extremely exciting. I've had such great experiences and for this to be added to the list of a potential experience is something for me, especially in our backyard, as you were saying, could be super 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 special. I can't even imagine what it could be like for the young generation now of soccer players growing up in South Florida. I think it could have huge drive in terms of that community. And yeah, personally, I'm elated. I'm overjoyed. I can't be more excited for this.
Yeah, and especially you look at the impact the '94 World Cup, which Austin and I were not alive for. I think Ian, you were definitely there for that. But the '94 World
That
Cup,
was
the impact it
what
had,
Austin's
and
talking about, a next generation of soccer fans. I mean, that was really my first, getting to know you to soccer. MLS was just starting back then and all that
yeah,
stuff. Yeah.
yeah, and you saw the impact it had. It led to the creation of MLS, and now here we are, several years later, and the league's going to expand to 30 teams, and you've got passionate fan bases all over the country, and then you got the academies going, and what is going to happen in the next 4 years? What is that next iteration of American soccer and MLS going to look like? And it's just an exciting time for not only as soccer fans, as soccer writers and journalists. Potentially covering that World Cup too. It's just it's just exciting. I was watching it here out back in my living room living room TV. That's where I was watching it. And I was just, I was so excited, and it's just a historic moment for South Florida. And I don't know what I would have done if it went to Orlando or some other Nashville or what have you, which they're good cities, but Miami, it's really where every professional soccer player comes to vacation. You see Pogba here. Drive Pink Stadium's hosting a super cool Legends game with Ronaldinho and Roberto Carlos, and Dybala is going, and all these superstar players, and it's just Miami is a soccer hotbed, and if they didn't get a game, it would have been a travesty, I think. But it's here, it's coming in 4 years, and it's just so exciting. The build up to it is going to be amazing. You saw what happened with F1. That was an event, and that was only over 3 days, a weekend. Imagine what a World Cup is going to be down here. So a lot more traffic and a lot more people, but it'll be worth it. The historical impact, the lasting impact it'll have for MLS and the entire country, it's just going to be absolutely huge.
And I'll throw a little Miami historian notes in this. The great Joe Robbie, when he was planning to build that stadium out there, the old Joe Robbie Stadium, as us South Florida natives, the old ones, the South Florida natives call it still, despite it becoming Pro Player and Landshark and Dolphins and now Hard Rock, we still call
Sun
it
Life.
Sun. What? Oh, Sun. Yeah, yeah, yep.
Sun Life.
For like a
Sun
minute,
Life
minute and a
Stadium.
half. Yeah.
Wow.
But Joe Robbie, when he did start the plans for that stadium, envisioned one day a World Cup game being played there. He built it with the idea that the World Cup would come to that stadium. And you can see now, as the stadium has evolved over time, it was really meant to be a multi-purpose facility to host football. It hosted baseball, to be able to host a World Cup. You can look at now as you go in over the next couple of years, you can see how the entrances are very much built for a soccer venue of the type. And now with the Miami Open there, with Formula One there, really becoming that multi-purpose facility that it was always intended on being, is wonderful. The big challenge, and the county has 4+ years to figure it out, as do many municipalities in the United States. Foxborough is not close to downtown Boston, and East Rutherford, New Jersey, is not in New York City. But Hard Rock Stadium is not very close to downtown Miami or South Beach, as everybody here listening probably knows. So, I think that they're going to have to figure out transportation. Miami-Dade County, South Florida, has always needed infrastructure changes and always needed a better transit system. So if this is what helps get it, power to the people, and all rooting for it. But that is a major cause for concern. I'm sure it was the biggest halt in questioning Miami's bid. But we'll see what the plans are to really make it. The thing that I will say is Miami is unique, more so than maybe some of the other cities, to hosting events like the World Cup, especially with the Super Bowl that comes here, especially with the college football playoff that comes to the same stadium. They're sort of used to being able to handle something like this. And so I think that it made, outside of New York and Los Angeles, Miami, probably, maybe Dallas, but Miami, maybe Atlanta, you throw in there too. But Miami had probably one of the strongest bids to host the World Cup, which I think is a testament to not only soccer's growth in South Florida, but the backing behind making a stadium that was able to host this, and getting your ducks in a row for when the time was right, be able to have it. And we'll enjoy Qatar, and then as soon as that final whistle goes, all eyes are going to turn to World Cup 2026. That's just how it works. It works with the Olympics. It works with the World Cup. That's always how it goes. And so they'll be working on Miami 2026 sooner than we know it. But for now, we still have a game in the present this upcoming weekend, and so good to be back here with you, Austin, with you, Alex, for our producer, Andres. I am Ian Hest again. Inter Miami versus Atlanta United this Sunday, 3 p.m. on ESPN2. Make sure you follow the Heron Outlet on Twitter, on Instagram, on YouTube. What am I forgetting, guys? You can find us on Spotify,
TikTok,
on
maybe.
wherever you get your podcast. Follow us, like, share, subscribe, comment, and we will see you again here this time next week. Take care.